What's up, guys? Welcome to A Reseller's Life. My name is Chris. Thank you so much for joining me. In this episode, I'm going to go over 35 questions that every single reseller should ask. No matter what level you are at, it always applies. It's going to help your self-awareness and help you get to the next level. Also, I'm excited to announce that I'm going to interview 35 different resellers and ask them these exact same questions. So you can email me at chris@dailyrefinement.com and I will send you this list for free, and then you can fill it out. I recommend you print it out, lock yourself in a room with no internet and no cell phone, and just fill it out in a notebook. Answer all the questions right in a row. Take an hour or two and go through this list, and you're going to feel a lot better at the end and have a better idea of where you're going to go in the next week or month or quarter. Hopefully this helps you as much as it helps me. These are some questions that I put together from a lot of different books and just from doing this full time for about 3 years. So let's get into it. The first question is, where do you live? What do you sell? And I feel like this is a very generic question, but it's very important to recognize that your identity goes a long way in reselling. If you sell cameras, that is a very different identity than someone who sells everything. If you sell everything, chances are you aren't great at anything and you have more of a hobby. Your hobby is picking, finding great items of value here and there. That's usually difficult to scale because it's heavily reliant on your own time. Nothing wrong with that. It's just hard to scale everything because teaching everything to somebody else can prove to be problematic. Next question is, how many people do you want to serve? This is question number 2. Do you want to be a boutique where you serve just a few people with higher end items generally? It can also be replenishable. You may have a replenishable store, meaning you sell lots of the same kinds of things to certain people. I consider myself sort of a hybrid. There are certain products that I want to really understand my customer base, like my YouTube channel. I want to make content that you guys will like, comment, and subscribe to, right? That's a niche boutique style channel versus serving general products is more like my eBay one-off store, which just has random clothing and shoes in it. And I'm just looking for people that are looking for a great deal. There's not a specific customer base there. I'm getting items for as cheap as possible and then passing that good deal to customers. So 2 very different approaches for you. How many people do you want to serve is really important. A lot of people, few amount of people. It's going to totally determine how you spend your day. Number 3, what's cool and what sucks about reselling where you live? This is important because everywhere has unique advantages. Everywhere has unique disadvantages. Let me know in the comment section below which one of these questions strikes you the most, and then let me know your answers because I'm really curious how you are doing it. Also, if you want to be interviewed for this series, just email me at chris@dailyrefinement.com. If you feel like your answers would be very insightful, then please share it with me because I can share it with my audience and hopefully we can gain a lot of insight from that and work together as a reseller community. Number 4, what's your goal with reselling? And what does your ideal store look like? This is a really powerful question. And the reason why I ask this is, why are you even doing this? Are you looking to replace your income? Do you want to become rich or wealthy from this? Where do you want to go with this? For me personally, I just want my store to grow year after year after year. My ideal store is a store that improves year over year over year, whether I make more profit per item or I have more things to offer my customers. I'm a continuous improvement type person. I want my store to grow over time. That's what I'm looking for specifically in my store. Other people may want to keep a certain size store. Other people might look at it as a certain amount of time each week. Other people may do it as a hobby. Some people do it as retirement. You're the only person that can answer this question. What does your ideal store look like? So hopefully if you guys are listening to this while driving or at home, please take notes because this is a really powerful episode of the best questions I've come up with in doing this for a while. So hopefully this is really impactful. This exercise is really important. Maybe listen to this video a couple of times. Number 5, bigger isn't always better. But if you want to 10x your business, what would you like to do differently? Or what would you have to do differently rather? The reason why I ask this question is because you have to think differently. For me, what I have to do differently is I'd have to have more people help me source because I would need 10 times as much inventory coming in. The other processes would also require people to help me with those. I would need a bigger facility, and it might make more sense to start that enterprise in the middle of the country because there's a bit of a shipping advantage in the middle, and also the cost of labor is cheaper. So if I really wanted to do it 10 times as big, then it would make sense to go somewhere where the labor is cheaper, the space is cheaper, and the shipping is cheaper. Huge advantages in doing that. When you're small, you can kind of get away with anything. That's why there's so much disagreement amongst resellers online, because when you're small, when you're doing essentially under $1 million in sales, you can run your business however you want. There's so many different models, so many different people, so many different structures. So again, bigger isn't always better, but just think about what you'd have to do if you wanted to 10 times your business. Number 6, what systems need help? Do you need help with sourcing, photography, accounting, listing, marketing, inventory? What's your weakest link? It's important to recognize that you can outsource any of these processes to somebody else, or you can get really good at them, or you could double down on your strengths and weaknesses, or your strengths rather. It is different for everyone. But again, identify which systems for you need help. Number 7, I like to start every conversation with a win. So when I'm talking to somebody, what's working? Tell me something that's working. Tell me a tool that's working for you. For me, I like the app Forest. It's fantastic. It's free. You plant a tree and you tell your app how long you want to grow the tree. If you say 15 minutes and you check your phone within 15 minutes, your tree dies and you feel terrible for doing that. It's a focus app that helps you stay on track. I like to do 4-hour sessions of that. It's like, I consider it a work sprint, and I'm not tempted to check my phone because I know that plant will die, and it's good enough for me to not check my phone constantly. It's a very helpful tool, and it is also free. The more tools and hacks you can have to keep you on track, the easier it is going to be to reach your goals, because anytime you take your eye off the goal, that's essentially an obstacle. So reducing distraction is a huge part of reaching whatever reseller goal that you're looking for. Number 8, what platforms do you sell on? I would recommend you master one platform before going to the next one. Starting on multiple platforms is foolish, in my opinion, because you don't have enough time to get great at the platform. I would recommend at least 100 items on one platform before you move to the next one, just so you can kind of get the hang of it, understand how buyers operate, how the search metrics work, meaning how do people find items on those sites. It's different for every site. So write down what platforms you want to master. What do you want to be known for? Do you want to be known as an eBay seller, Amazon seller, whatever it is? Think about it. Number 9, is your family on board with your project? Have you talked to them about it? Do they have a clear communication on what you're doing? Do they know there are boundaries? If you physically go to work, people usually disturb you less than if you work at home. Do people understand the boundaries? Are your kids on board? Is your significant other on board? It's important, because if you're constantly being distracted, it's harming everyone, not just your productivity. So make sure everyone is on board. And if not, write down what the responsibilities are and how you can split it up. Number 10, how did you get started? And how far have you come? This is why I recommend you journal. Because I want people to just look at where you started. When I started, my system of inventory was one pile of stuff on the ground in the middle of the garage. There was no system, and it was just stuff around the house. I went to Savers and I bought a bunch of puzzles because I saw a YouTube video. That's where I started, right? When I ran out of things to sell, I went to Savers and I bought puzzles. That was the very first thing I started with after I ran out of things to sell. So it's nice to look back at that and see how far I have come since then. I think you guys should also do that, because it's all too easy to be way too hard on yourself when this is a marathon. Number 11, how long have you been selling? And more importantly, are you getting better? Are you getting worse? Are you continuously improving? Are you a 15-year veteran reseller that has the same year of experience 15 years in a row? Or are you someone that really pushes the envelope, and every single day you're like, how can I improve this? How can I save time? How can I shave some expenses here and there to make my net profit go up. Are you getting better or getting worse? There's really very difficult to tread water in this sense. If you are doing the same thing week to week, it's pretty common actually for your profit to dwindle because markets naturally become more competitive and flooded over time. That initial boost is usually where most of the profit is made if you're, depending on what kind of reseller you are. So you can't do the same thing and expect the same results in this kind of business. Number 12, do you have a family? How do you schedule your reselling activities? How do you schedule your day? How do you organize your responsibilities? Are they written down? Do you know on Mondays and Wednesdays you make dinner? Do you know that laundry is part of your obligation? What is it? Do you have all this stuff written down and organized? Because without that, as you get older, you accumulate a bunch of stuff. You accumulate a bunch of responsibilities. You accumulate kids, spouses, exes, all this crazy stuff. It gets harder and harder to keep track of your life. That's why minimalism, in my opinion, is so popular, because it's the opposite. You start to get rid of responsibilities and get rid of things. You declutter your house, your mind, your relationships. That's why I think the trend is so popular, because people have been acquiring for so long. It's time to get rid of it. So again, inventory what you need to get done, what your activities are in your regular life and your reselling. Document those, and it's going to help a lot. Number 13. What gets in the way of you being productive? What distracts you? I have been ruthlessly deleting apps on my phone, and I love it. If I need the app, I will download the app. And most of the time, needing to download the app is too much effort, so I just don't get distracted. I'm really enjoying that, and distractions are so easy to get out of hand. So what can you remove or delete today to get to the next level? Number 14. What's your biggest obstacle to reaching your goal? First off, you should know how much money you need to reach your goal. Then, do you have the knowledge? Do you have the skills? Do you have the space? Do you have the mindset? Do you have the capital? What is limiting you from reaching the goal? And once you actually define this, then it just comes down to resourcefulness, because there's no shortage of money. There's no shortage of inventory. There's no shortage of people looking for someone to help. So there's unlimited people, not unlimited, but there are people that can help you do it, people who can finance it for you, people who can list it for you, people who love photography. And the only thing that is not possible to overcome is wanting to do everything yourself. That's very challenging, to run everything in your business and have any kind of balance outside of your reselling career. There are people that manage their reselling career at the expense of everything else, but that's not what this channel is about. Daily refinement is the pursuit of less but better, not just more and more and more things. That's not the purpose of this channel. I want you guys to have only the things that matter to you in your life. What was your background before reselling? That's question number 15. For me, it was sales. For me, selling things has been a natural transfer of energy from one person to the next. I've been doing it my whole life, and I enjoy it. It's something that takes time to develop. I think most people can learn how to sell things, but it's easier if you come from a background of engineering where you do problem solving, or from sales where you have experience doing that. What that translates into is, if you have a history of customer service or sales or engineering, you're looking naturally for what the customer wants. I find people who are not in those types of industries, they look for what they want, which doesn't really matter. The market will dictate what it wants, and then you serve that to the market. The people who are only sensitive to what they want usually flounder at reselling, because reselling doesn't care about your feelings. It's just the market, you giving the market what it wants to buy. Number 16, do you have enough energy to resell? This is very important. Do you have enough energy to resell? Right? It comes down to this. Also, as you get older, you may have accumulated some extra weight, some extra diseases, some extra disabilities, which makes it even harder. So what could you do to get more energy? We're now at the halfway point. If you guys want to pause the video and go to the bathroom, this is like the most intense video I've ever made. So I apologize for how heavy this is, but I want to get all the questions in one place so you can literally pause the video, get a notebook, Go to Walmart, get a 99-cent notebook, pause the video right now, and fill out these questions. It's going to change your life. Okay. Next is number 17. What do you do outside of reselling? What do you do for fun? I find that most resellers, when they really get into it, all their hobbies go away. They used to play tennis. They don't play tennis anymore. They used to go to the park. No park. Get rid of their dog, get rid of everything, and just try to make money. And at the end, let's say you do accomplish that. If you want to join some of the Amazon forums, you will see just how miserable some people who make 7, 8 figures are, because they have ignored everything for 5 to 10 years to build up this giant business and ignored everything else. Go home to a family full of strangers. And, just what do you do outside of reselling? Do you plan rest? Do you do anything outside of just making money? Because if you are only the person that flips stuff that other people makes, it can feel like a low value contribution. You're just looking for whatever's hot in the market. That's certainly not going to give you the same type of feeling as, let's say you're a treasure hunter going to thrift stores and finding really cool treasures that would have been thrown away. People can do that forever. They love that. But like finding sponges for 50 cents below market and then driving to 90 of them, $90 stores to get sponges, that's kind of soul crushing. So just depends on where you're coming from. So I recommend doing something outside of reselling and planning rest. Number 18, what's the highest profit item you've sold? For me, the 3 highest profit items I've sold on eBay are all cars, which makes sense because the cars per unit are pretty expensive. I sold a Toyota MR2 for $16,500 that I paid $11,000 for, right? That's unusual circumstance, right? But you would also have to have the capital to purchase that car to flip that. At my company, I sold a Hummer H1, the original one, for I think a $25,000 profit, and then I sold the Lexus LFA supercar for $49,000 profit. All 3 of those deals on eBay directly to the customer, and it is a bit scary because like they can change their mind, especially in the state of California. Until they actually physically drive the car away, it's not a done deal. So it makes sense that those were really expensive, high transaction deals, and you can do that without any capital by just doing consignment. There are fancy cars everywhere that people need help flipping because they're busy. Usually people who have a expensive car to sell are busy at work paying for it. So you can definitely get into the consignment model. If my follow-up question to what's your biggest profit item is, can you get more of them? I could. Selling cars to me on eBay is not that fun. I prefer selling brand new cars that are from the dealership. That's why I worked for Lexus, because it's not complicated. It's a great product. They last forever. It's easy to sell. Selling one-off, unique, classic cars or supercars to me is really emotionally intensive. It's hard. And I like more systems stuff. I'd like to, basically run an ad on Auto Trader, get X amount of leads, call X amount of people, and it pops up, a certain number of results versus handcrafting one car at a time. That's not my bag of tea. But again, to each their own. Think about what makes you the most money, maybe double down or triple down on that type of thing, or recognize like me that even though it's high profit, that's not what you want to do. Next is, what's something unusual about you? Do you have any hidden talents? Is there something embarrassing about you that empowers you? What makes you you? What makes you unique? That's your superpower. That's the one thing you have that nobody else has. Write that down. Maximize that. Number 20. What's the one thing you would do differently if you started from scratch today? The thing I would recommend the most here is definitely keeping a different source of income and just leaving it, letting it ride. Sell something, buy something for $1, sell it for $2, spend $2, sell for $4, spend $4, sell for $8. Continue that path as long as you possibly can. That's what I would have done differently if I started from scratch. I would have just reinvested 100% of it back in. Follow-up question to that, number 21. If you had $1,000 to spend on sourcing today, how would you approach it? Would you just start calling wholesalers? Would you go to Goodwill? What is your strategy with $1,000? that can pretty much tell you what your career is going to be like. If you decide to go thrifting with it, you're capped by your time. You only have so many hours to drive there, find the stuff, go home, list it, ship it. You can only make so much. If you decide to only cold call, find people who are suppliers, maybe you spend $1,000 on just one product. That's $1, and you buy 1,000 units of it. Takes 10 minutes to make a listing, but 4 hours to optimize it, right? Make sure that it ranks, sell that one thing on 100 different platforms, right? Totally max out that one product. That's a totally different ballgame. So how you would approach spending $1,000 will let you know what your career is going to be like. Number 22, what's your perfect Saturday morning? Do you want to explore? Do you want a garage sale? Do you want to sleep in? How would you approach it? This will also let you know sort of what your trajectory will be like. You know, people who naturally like to go hunting for items on Saturday morning generally have a high average sale price because they're looking for really cool stuff, which usually translates into experience buying really cool stuff, which means you have a really high average selling price because you have an unequal knowledge versus the person you're buying it from. You recognize this thing's worth a lot and they don't recognize that. You know, you're going to come up. So I think it's important to think about what is your perfect Saturday morning. Number 23, do you have any unfair advantages? I've gone over this in previous questions, but I really want to hone in on that. And I guess you could just call it advantages. The reason why I call unfair is because it's, you know, business is cutthroat. Most businesses don't work. So I like having an advantage that's more difficult to achieve. That's why, you know, it may make sense for you to ship items that are only over 50 pounds. It's not that easy to do that. You know, you would have to have a lot of experience in order to pull that off. So that would be your unfair advantage, knowing how to ship things over 50 pounds and only playing in that realm. Number 24, what's one reseller mistake you've made? I could probably write to do 100 videos on mistakes that I've made. I've tried so many different things in my reselling career, but just write down one mistake that you've made. And I recommend doing this every day. Actually, in my journal, I write down something that went wrong every day because I don't want to repeat that, right? So if you don't read your journal, then you don't get to see what you've done wrong in the past. And the only thing, you know, the most powerful thing about history is that it repeats itself. So make sure that you read about it. Number 25. If you only had 10 hours a week for reselling, how would you spend it? Would you spend 9 hours of it sourcing the best possible stuff in 1 hour listing? Or would you go to the thrift store, spend an hour shopping, come home, and then list for 9 hours? Again, this is going to tell you guys what your life is like. Whatever your calendar reflects is what you are. So I want to make sure that you guys don't spend too much of your day planning because you need to execute and you don't really know what your day is going to look like. So you want to spend, I would say, 10 minutes to an hour planning your day, then knock out your day. Number 26, what part of reselling would you outsource, if any? Or do you love all of it? Is there some part of it that you don't like that you would like to have somebody else do for you? What would it be like if someone did all of it for you? I have seen that before. I have seen resale businesses where the owner does not do anything. They just check in or they just cash the check. You know, it's you can get to that point where everything is done by somebody else, or you could do everything from start to finish yourself. There's an ownership that comes with that. Like, this is me. My identity is this company. Everything is done by me. It's a little vulnerable because if you get sick or, you know, you don't feel like it one day, your income stops, right? And I see a lot of really strong-willed people do this. So again, I just like to just ask yourself, what part of reselling would you outsource? Number 27, how would your best friend describe you when it comes to business? See, I wish that my best friend would describe me as Chris makes a ton of money, but that's not really how my friend would describe me. He would describe me as very creative, and I don't like that. I would rather my best friend in the future say Chris is really good at making a significant profit and providing a fantastic value to the customer. That would be better. So when you think about what your friends think of you, sometimes it can shift your mindset. And, so for my superpower is more on the creative side than it is just pure profit. That's not where that's not my wheelhouse. My full wheelhouse is not there. So to each their own. How would your best friend describe you? Oftentimes they know you better than you know yourself. Number 28. What do you do really, really well? For me, I would say I'm really good at community building. Although, I had some missteps with community building in my past. And that has kind of discouraged me from doing more community building, but I would say that is my superpower. You guys could let me know in the comment section below what you think my superpower is. You guys have been watching me for a while now. Maybe you know me better than I know myself, but I think I do have a very good high skill at getting a bunch of people who I've only met one time to come together and do something. I have that ability. That ability far, far exceeds my ability to find a good deal. I can go to thrift stores and find profit, but my knowledge base is not every single item in the store. Certainly, I don't have a warehouse full of 150 employees. I don't have that logistics background. I don't have 30 years of wholesale experience, but I do have a heavy, heavy experience in dealing with people. Number 29. What is your top sourcing tip? What's your sourcing strategy? For me, my sourcing strategy is having somebody else source for me. What's my top sourcing tip? Have a reinvestment strategy. So always keep reinvesting in the inventory, and I think you will start to slowly keep the winners and get rid of the losers, because you're looking at your bottom line. How much are you actually making, and can you put some of that back into your business? That's my top sourcing tip, is actually based on cash management. Number 30. Do you have a reseller crew? Do you watch other resellers online? You're the average of your 5 influences. So for me, I used to chase everybody, but now I just look for stores that are slightly ahead of me in my reselling journey. So I look at their store, I look at what they're doing. Usually I can tell by what they're doing how they were able to get there. Success leaves clues. When I look at stores that are large, they do things the same way every time. There would be no way to get that large doing something different every single time. There's not enough time in 100 lifetimes to list 100,000 items in a different way every single time, right? But if you were listing the same thing over and over again, if you just had one item and you had sold 100 a day, that would be very straightforward. You have your processes down like that. Most of us don't have that luxury, but you could focus on, put all your eggs in one basket and really crush one kind of thing. And again, just realize you are who you hang out with. So ruthlessly cut people who suck and add people who are going to push you to the next level. Number 31. Do you have an interesting reseller story? Fun find, local meetup. I have found so many incredible items. I've sold a hard liquor dispenser. I've sold those Apple shoes for $2,500. I've found probably a dozen or so items over $500 I paid less than 10 for. I love sourcing vintage electronics and then listening to it as I'm testing it. That's really enjoyable. It's kind of a waste of time, but I really enjoy listening to old record players. They just sound so cool. So fun finds for me also include deals, right? Making a deal to buy an entire garage sale, doing an estate sale where you're the only one there because you were able to negotiate something. These are all really cool concepts, and it keeps your reseller story interesting, which will bring you closer to other people in the community and continue to grow your influence. Number 32. What one thing, if you did it, would improve your resale business the most? So for me personally, what it would be is consignment. If I opened up consignment and just focused on making my store the best, I would never run out of money, because listing the item and storing it is fairly cheap. It's the cost of the item that prevents me from growing to unlimited store, right? So if I were to take the time, fully set up a proper consignment system, then even people in my YouTube audience could just send me stuff. I would list it perfectly. It would sell for the most possible money. I would send them a check. I'd never have to source again. That is the one thing I could do that would move my resale business the most. It would eliminate a huge chunk of my business if I just did that, because it would only be inbound. Number 33. Are you in balance in your life? Do you have health, family, relationships, mindset? What is not doing well? What could be improved? How could you improve your health? How could you improve your sleep? How could you improve your diet? These are all super important things, and also they take time to develop. It's not something that you can overnight fix. You didn't get into the position you were overnight. You can't get out of it overnight. It takes time. So balance is sort of difficult to achieve. I don't really look at it that way. I just look at it as in what areas need improvement, then do your best to work on the weakest link. Number 34. What's your top choice of occupation outside of reselling? Okay, if you couldn't resell anymore, if it all went back to brick and mortar and there was no more electricity, what would you do? For me, I think I would want to somehow be a teacher. Although teaching doesn't pay very well, that would be my top choice of occupation if I wasn't reselling. If I was independently wealthy, that's what I would do. I would just try to help. I'd probably teach kids because they're like the future. And it's very cool showing somebody how to do something and then they actually do it. So that's my top choice of occupation outside of reselling. You guys should consider that. And you might want to make reselling a side gig for the rest of your life. I think that's more enjoyable for most people, to be honest. Number 35. What books or resources have helped you the most? I have a link in the description to the top books that I've been most influenced by. The book Work the System by Sam Carpenter goes over how to formulaically turn everything into a system. I really enjoy that book, and I like looking at it like that. I like looking at, what am I going to do with a friend? I want to make sure that we go on a walk. That's like one of my favorite things to do with friends and family. Go for a walk, enjoy some food. I like looking at recipes. That all came from the book Work the System, where he talks about how everything is a system, and his life was in shambles. He was divorced. His kids hated him. His business was horrible. Then he realized that everything is a series of systems, started systematizing everything, and then now he has a wonderful girlfriend. His kids like him again, good relationship with his ex-wife. Business is thriving. He works 2 hours a month now in his business. He outsourced the entire thing. 30% profit margin, 7-figure company. Incredible, right? Very cool. So that book is huge. The Compound Effect, The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. All of the books that I really enjoy are all in the description below. I like the Entrepreneur Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy, especially because I think I relate to it more than the Compound Effect. I understand the Compound Effect is like one of the greatest business books. It talks about how everything matters, but the Entrepreneurship Roller Coaster gives me some insight that this business journey is not linear. It's definitely up and down. One day you love your business, one day you hate your business. And then as you get more mature in your business, you're desensitized to things that happen. There may be a huge problem, there may be a supplier issue, but you just shrug it off and continue. I think I've met some, pretty amazing business people over the years, and they seem very calm, very at peace, because they recognize that business is not flat. It's going to be a fire to put out every day. In fact, that's how a lot of business owners consider themselves. I just put out fires all day. That's my job. So again, if you guys want this list, I am going to do a special series this month where I interview 35 resellers and ask them these questions. So I'm going to put the link to that in the description below. You can email me for the list for free. But I'm going to transcribe all the interviews so that you could just read them, put it together in a product, and that product's going to be $35. If you want to support your favorite reseller from the interviews, which are going to be posted on this channel for free, you can buy it using their code and they'll get half of the proceeds, and that just helps offset the cost it took to coordinate 35 different reviews for you guys and get literally 1,000 tips for you guys to improve your business. And again, there's not a formula to make this work other than you improve yourself every single day. Daily refinement is the name of this show, and I appreciate you guys' time. Please like, comment, subscribe. Help me out. If you're going to get this sheet from me, please go to iTunes and leave a review. That really helps other people find my podcast as well. And I appreciate your time. Until next time, make progress daily.